Shelby, it is good to be back.
Yeah, it is.
Is this a podcast? I've forgotten what podcasts are in 2 weeks. Apologies again for missing last week. I think you'll see in our story today maybe why that happened.
I hope so. It was a bit of a crazy week.
It was a dark and stormy night, much like this. And throughout the story, it often was dark and stormy. So that
Actually,
is
it was,
fairly
yeah.
appropriate.
We were staying out in Etoile on the lake again. We were out there for 8 days.
This is the couple that Shelby dog sits for. Or one of the couples.
Yes. So I was out there taking care of their 2 dogs as well as their daughter's cat. And then also taking care of their neighbor's cat. So I had 2 dogs and 2 cats in 2 different houses. It wasn't a mess, but it was a lot.
Just for context for this whole story, we live in Nacogdoches, and this lake house is in Etoile, which is on the northwestern side of Lake Sam Rayburn. It's about a 45-minute drive. The mileage isn't that far, but it's mostly like state highways and back roads in between the two.
It's very windy. It's surprisingly windy. So it's quite a ways away from home for us. I'm sure for a lot of people, 45 minutes is not that far. For us, it is.
Yeah, I mean, in 45 minutes, we could just about be in Louisiana.
Yeah, we could. And we share a car, so that kind of also adds its own little level of
Complexity.
Yeah.
Frustration.
Yeah.
Right. So Shelby's out there for 8 days. We only have one car. I was planning to come for the weekends, and then Shelby was actually going to have the car throughout the week. Thankfully, I work with a few good friends and with my sister, and so I can generally get rides to and from work when I need to.
So getting there, we were a little bit rushed. I got there a little bit later than I wanted to. We were within fine time of when we needed to be there for the sake of the dogs.
And this is all happening last Saturday.
So even though we weren't actually at risk of making anything more difficult for the dogs, it was more stressful than it should have been. But nonetheless, I brought Princess with me out to the house. She has stayed out there with me before, and it's always been fine.
Multiple times. I think you've been at this house maybe 3 or 4 times. And usually when you go, it's for a long period of time like this.
It is. Princess has only come out with me once or twice because we haven't had her that long.
Gotcha.
So she went out with me. That was the plan. My clients knew she was coming. They've approved her being there.
She's a very sweet little small miniature dachshund.
Yeah. She's very passive.
Yeah.
So we got there on Saturday. Everything was fine. It came dinner time for the dogs. The 2 dogs' food bowls are kind of in different parts of the house. It's not a big house, so it's not like you have to really go out of the way to get to it, but they're not close to each other. Because the older dog, Archie, is a little bit possessive over food. Now, Archie's bowl is right next to the bin where they keep the food. So you scoop the food out of the bin, dump it right in Archie's bowl, walk over, and put it in Hamish's bowl. Oftentimes, whenever it is feeding time, the dogs will just gather around the bin where the food comes out, which is also near Archie's bowl. On Saturday, that included Princess. So Princess was also near the bowl. Archie took this as a serious threat to his food, which is the thing he's most possessive over. He growled at her for a second, and when she didn't move, he bit her on her snout pretty hard. He had her gripped. He didn't just like bite her and let her go. When I went to pull her away, he had a tight grip on her mouth. She let out some cries, and then she was totally fine.
There was quite a commotion for a minute. I was in the other room. I didn't really see anything, but it was quite like it went from like 0 to like lots of yelping and growling and noise very quickly.
I knew that she had been somewhat injured because she continued to yelp and cry even after I got her out of his grip. And once she was no longer in actual danger of an attack. But after maybe 2 minutes, she was totally fine. She went over to her bowl. She ate food.
Well, she was acting fine.
Yes, she was acting fine. We also noticed drops of blood. As I picked her up and carried her into the kitchen for her to eat her food, we saw drops of blood. I looked over her and felt around, and I was trying to find if she had a wound anywhere. She's black and long-haired, so it can be really difficult to find wounds, both because it's harder to see where the blood is coming from, and with her long fur, you can't actually see a wound. I saw that there was blood around her mouth, so I thought maybe she'd bit her tongue or something. I didn't really know what to think, but it was clear she had been injured to some degree. Her attitude, her demeanor, just generally her behavior was totally normal. So I didn't think too much of it.
Shelby did some cursory looking to see if there were any vets open. This took place, I think, around 7 p.m. on Saturday night. And shocker, there aren't any vets open at 7 p.m. on a Saturday night. So we knew that if we did take her to the vet, it would be pretty expensive. And like you said, she wasn't really behaving too differently than she normally would.
It didn't seem like a severe situation at all. Like, it seemed like there was one instance where there was like an ugly interaction, but it didn't seem to me like there was anything that was really going to be a problem. I slept on the couch with her because at that point she was still bleeding a little bit. There was no reason to have her on the bed. So I just basically like kind of laid a towel out on the couch and slept with her out there. Sunday morning, I woke up around 4 and she was not well. She was still actively bleeding, which was a concern. She was extremely lethargic. Didn't want to go outside to go potty, didn't want to get off the couch, wasn't very responsive in general. So I knew that the situation was much more serious than I had initially thought. I still had to teach class that morning, so I didn't really see there as being a ton that I could do in that time. I don't know, I guess I just kind of made a decision to go on with the morning. So I taught my classes, and when Nate got up, I kind of talked to him about the situation, and we decided to go ahead and call the emergency vet. This was at Angelina Animal Hospital in Lufkin, and I felt like she got very good care there. I was a nervous wreck, but I'd kind of already been crying a lot this morning. The vet found the wound. It was a puncture wound straight through the bottom of her jaw, just through the flesh and the skin there. So that was the source of all of the bleeding. And again, at this point, it was still active. It had slowed down a little bit, but if you touched around enough, you'd get some blood on your hands. The vet also suspected that she might have a small fracture on her jaw, and that was very concerning. She recommended that Princess have surgery, potentially, which she said could wait till Monday, that it didn't need to be done then. She said that I could either have it done there or I could take Princess to her normal vet. So I decided that we would do that we'd take her to Nacogdoches. Before we left the vet's office, she gave me an antibiotic and some pain medicine to give Princess, as well as the cutest little muzzle you've ever seen in your life. She recommended that Princess wear this muzzle almost like if you break your arm, you might wear a sling before you go get a cast. Just something to kind of immobilize her jaw a little bit so it didn't move around anymore and do any more damage.
And the front of it was open, so she could still actually kind of lick out the front and take in liquid. So, like, I know they gave her, like, some liquid food, and she was still drinking water that way. The muzzle didn't completely, like, block her whole mouth.
No. But it was very small, and it was very cute, because she is very small. But she hated it. We put the muzzle on, and she started rubbing her face all over the floor and pawing at the muzzle, trying to get it off, which I was concerned that would do more damage and undo any good that the muzzle was doing. But I followed doctor's orders. That night, we had a big family dinner at my mom's house.
This was Father's Day.
Yes. I certainly wasn't going to leave Princess at the house with the dogs, and I wasn't really going to leave her alone at all. So I just brought her with us in her little muzzle, and it was really hard.
Let me just interject here, adding one more complicating factor. That's what this story is about, is like layers of complications and layers of difficulty.
Yeah.
We didn't take her to the vet immediately on Sunday morning because we just weren't sure about it. So in the meantime, we went ahead and boiled eggs. Shelby is famous for her deviled eggs. So we had been asked to bring deviled eggs to the Father's Day meal. Since there would be, I think, 23 people at the Father's Day dinner, we needed to make close to 70 or 75 individual eggs, like a half egg. Anyway, so we boiled those, and then kind of towards the end of that, we went ahead and decided, okay, we need to take Princess to Lufkin and, go see the vet and all that kind of stuff. We had taken the eggs out of the water, and I just stuck them in the fridge, and we left, and we came back. Boiled eggs are way easier to peel if you take them out of the boiling water and dunk them in ice water and then peel it right then. It's really easy. The shell just comes right off for the most part. No problem. Unfortunately, that was interrupted by the vet visit, and so we didn't come back to the eggs till an hour and a half or 2 hours later.
So we get back from the vet, and we immediately need to start working on our deviled eggs. I'm making sure that Princess is taken care of, that she has all the medication that she needs. I've made her a little nest on the couch where she can still see us and I can still see her, and she's out of reach of the other dogs.
Besides needing to finish the eggs, neither of us had showered or was dressed or anything like that.
So we started peeling these eggs, and it was an absolute nightmare. More egg white came off with the shell than was still attached to the boiled egg. This was not on just a few of the eggs. That happens. Anytime you're making a lot of boiled eggs, some of them are not going to turn out great. It's fine. It's not a problem. This was on every single egg. This was with all 36 boiled eggs. They were all just disgusting, bumpy, lumpy, crumbling, nasty eggs. It doesn't actually matter that much. When you serve them, the whites are down and you are mostly seeing the yolk mixture.
I disagree with that. I think it matters more than almost any other time with an egg.
I guess the egg white is not the primary thing that you are seeing.
But it's the thing you're touching.
Yeah.
I think the appearance of the eggs when you're making deviled eggs matters more than almost any other time you're actually making eggs.
The appearance does, but I think you can do a lot for the appearance with how you put the yolk mixture onto the white.
Yeah, but it's just not right if the bottom of the egg white is like pocked.
Yeah. They did not look good. The original plan was to boil, peel, and cut the eggs at the lake house in Etoile and go ahead and make the yolk mixture. So make everything ahead of time, transport it to my mom's house where we would then pipe the filling into the eggs. That was the plan. It quickly became evident that if we transported these eggs after they had already been cut, they were going to fall apart to pieces. They would not survive the transport.
I decided that we wouldn't cut any of them until we got to Shelby's mom's house. So we just peeled them all, washed them off, and then put them in a Ziploc. I still wanted to get as much of the prep work done as I could because I knew once we got there, we wouldn't have all the time in the world either. So I went ahead and combined all of the other mix-in ingredients. Mayonnaise, mustard, apple cider vinegar, salt, pepper, and maybe something else, maybe garlic.
I think that's usually it. I don't really do many spices in it.
Yeah. But all the other stuff you mix in to make the yolk mixture good. So I combined all that, stuck it in a Ziploc bag. That was fine. We drove the 45 minutes back to Nacogdoches. I got all the eggs halved once we were there. I, mashed up all the yolks. I got them mixed into the mixture, and I hadn't salted and peppered it all the way, so I wanted to taste it before I started piping it. And so I just got a little spoonful of the mixture and tasted it. And it was one of the worst things I've put in my mouth in a while.
Now, here's the thing about Nate. Sometimes if a thing is bad, he might over exaggerate a little bit how bad it is. So I was standing there and we were both going to taste it. And he gave it the first taste and was like, that's disgusting. We can't serve that. And,
right.
I'm thinking okay, well, of course we can serve it. We'll fix it. It'll be fine.
I was visibly shaken by the terrible taste.
I tasted it. It was awful. So we started rummaging through Mom's fridge for mayo, Miracle Whip, anything of that variety that we could do to counteract the bad taste.
Now, you're not giving me enough credit. I knew immediately, once I tasted it, that it was the vinegar. Something happened, and there was too much apple cider vinegar in it.
Yeah.
And it was very bad, but I am also particularly sensitive to vinegar. I really don't like vinegar that much. So I start looking around online for specific ingredients that will counteract a vinegar taste.
Because we were going to try anything and everything.
I think what came up was soy sauce, brown sugar, and there was one more thing. I'm forgetting it now, but there was one other thing we kind of threw in there. None of it helped. I mean, the soy sauce helped a bit. Like, I would say that cut the bitter taste to an extent. The brown sugar didn't help. The brown sugar made it worse. But I put that in last. I was going like, I knew the soy sauce wouldn't hurt it that much, so I started with the soy sauce just to make sure. I mixed, probably a quarter cup into it, like a significant amount of soy sauce.
It changed the color of the mixture.
Right.
So.
And the soy sauce really didn't negatively affect the flavor that much, but it also didn't counteract the just awful vinegar flavor.
Yeah, I think any of those ingredients would work if it was a little too much vinegar. But this was a lot. And as we started adding all of these extra ingredients, we also had to be mindful of the texture. For those who may be unfamiliar with deviled eggs, the texture of the filling should be thick, creamy, relatively stiff. Like, you want it kind of stiff, almost like a meringue.
See, I would compare it to finely ground mashed potatoes.
Yeah, that's not... Well, you don't need it that dry.
Well, and also mashed potatoes aren't ground. I would say they're mashed.
Finely grated, you could say like a finely grated potato.
But that doesn't make any sense. What I said was wrong, and I'm sorry for my actions.
Anyways.
I'm going to take some time off to be with my family in this difficult time.
So we had added in all of the possible solutions to fix our problem. The flavor, still gross.
Inedible.
Yeah. The texture, there was now no texture. It was soup. We had egg yolk mayo soup.
It wasn't soup. You still could have piped that out and it would have been fine. But
you could have like spooned it into the eggs.
It would have been fine.
And then like chilled it in the fridge.
It would have been fine. But it wasn't fine.
You couldn't pipe it.
The texture was not the problem. The terrible taste that made you want to die was the problem.
Okay, it didn't make you want to die.
It was extremely bad for me. Like I said, I'm very sensitive to vinegar. That was like the worst possible. Definitely the worst thing I've ever made, personally.
I think I've probably made worse.
No, I can't think of anything else that you've goofed that bad. But at that point, I called it quits. I said, okay, now we're just wasting soy sauce. That's all we're doing. So we need to just throw this yolk mixture away. I have nothing else to fill it with. Like, I'm not going to go boil more eggs just to get the yolks. That would only make the problem worse. So I said, okay, that's it. I'm sorry to anyone who was excited about deviled eggs. They're not happening. Which
was like most of the people there.
Right.
Like Nate said, I'm well known for my deviled eggs. So
now I had a pile of literally 69 halves of egg white. 3 of them I think were broken and I threw away or something like that. So there were 69 left.
Nice.
And yeah, that was just terrible. I was trying to trace my culinary steps to see what went wrong.
Well, no. First, before he even considered the role that he had in it, which was the whole thing, he was solely responsible for the mixture.
For the yolk part.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Oh no, that was the part that tasted horrible. So anyways.
I'm just saying the egg whites weren't perfect either, okay?
No, they were definitely bad. Now, they were bad because we had to leave. Anyways, doesn't matter. What does matter...
What really matters is how bad those egg yolks were.
What really matters is that your first reaction...
was to blame you. It was your recipe.
Yeah. No,
it was your dumb recipe.
His first reaction was, are you sure you follow this recipe when you make these? as if the recipe from the internet would say to add an abhorrent amount of vinegar.
Well, sometimes you get recipes and they're just crap. I don't know, like, who is just making up recipes, but I have made stuff before that I got off the internet that I'm like, no one makes it this way and likes it. Like, this is bad. It's a bad recipe, and they're a bad person for posting this recipe. So I've had stuff like that before. So my thought was maybe you had made it before and you had altered it in some ways when you made it, but you didn't actually like mark those changes in our app. That was my thought.
Now, I will say the recipe that I follow is an altered recipe, but it's an altered recipe that I have been using as long as I've been making deviled eggs, which isn't that long, but I am relatively good at it.
Several years, yeah.
Yeah.
So first, step one, blame someone else. I mean, this is like classic. This is just what you do when something goes wrong. You look for another victim to bestow that blame on.
And I was just the closest person.
Shelby was the closest and easiest target. So what had happened was I misread the directions and put in tablespoons instead of teaspoons. I think the recipe called for 6 teaspoons of both mustard and vinegar, and I put in 6 tablespoons of each. So also the mustard flavor was bad too. I don't think I noticed it as much. Maybe just because I've had lots of eggs like that before where there is often too much mustard flavor. But both of those were basically tripled. That's what a teaspoon is to a tablespoon.
Yeah.
So triple the mustard, triple the vinegar. I'll make you a guarantee. If you take any egg recipe and you triple the mustard and triple the vinegar, it will make it bad. So that was the mistake. It was all my responsibility. Once again, I apologize for my actions and the way my actions have hurt those around me. And I will be taking a leave of absence to reconsider my life.
You go sit in your room and think about what you've done.
Yeah.
Now, fortunately, at this time, I was too stressed and overwhelmed to actually get mad about the eggs.
Now, I think that is actually the culprit for me messing it up. I marginally have a degree in cooking-related things. Honestly, I do think the rushing made the mistake happen.
Definitely. And I will say, I'm not... If I were to have made that mistake, I would be so mad at myself. But when other people make mistakes like that, man, it happens.
I was mad at me. I was mad at me.
I just... It takes a lot for me to get, like, mad at someone else for messing something up. I guess because I mess stuff up so often. Anyways, so I wasn't really mad. Like, I was disappointed that we'd spent so much time on it and we weren't going to be able to serve them, and that people were expecting deviled eggs and weren't going to get any.
Once
like
again,
I said,
layers of disappointment.
Layers of just difficulty. My mom and I had decided that it would be fun if we played a game, a Father's Day game. We were going to have a lot of different families there, and none of the families know each other very well, and some of them hadn't met at all. At these large events, it's so easy for all of us to split off into our own family groups and not actually talk to anyone else, which defeats the purpose of having the families together. So we decided that we would play a game to kind of get everyone knowing everyone else, and something that we could all do together.
It's like like any other kind of icebreaker game.
Yeah.
You do, like, if you're in a small group or you go to a new dorm at college, like just your normal kind of stuff.
Yeah. So we went with a game that was like loosely based off of the Newlywed Game. But we were doing it for 6 different people to be played by like 20 other people, but like all at once.
What could go wrong?
When I took on this task, I knew that it was going to be challenging, but I didn't have any better ideas of anything less complicated to do. When you get that many people together and you try to do something to bring them all together and also make it fathers focused, it's difficult. So I was nervous about it, and I still had some prep work that needed to be done whenever we got to the house. So I was trying to prepare for the game, handle things with the eggs, and make sure that my dog was okay, all while still being emotional just from the events of that day and the night before. Surprisingly, the game went pretty well. Like, I mean, it wasn't great, but it was not a flaming hot garbage fire like I expected it would be.
It went worse than I expected, but my expectations were much higher than yours.
How?
I thought it was a good idea.
Well, everyone else had a really good time, for the most part.
Everyone had a good time. It was a bigger success than would be expected. And everyone was very proud of Shelby because she did a great job as the game show host.
I will say, the game was not good, but I kind of did a great job. I'm not typically one to brag, but I think I brought the right energy that both acknowledged that the game we were playing was maybe a little weird, a little awkward, a little difficult, while also saying that we were still going to have fun.
Which we did.
Which we did. So I think that that's part of what made it successful. I didn't take it too seriously, but anyways, I don't need to get into the details of my success, but
yeah, the party overall went well. It was very stressful, like just getting there like on time with a dog that's still alive and everything was just difficult. The nasty eggs were just like a big defeat. I didn't mention that morning while Shelby was waiting on the vet to finish with Princess, there was a big storm coming and it looked really cool. I mean, it was really big front, really dark, dark blue color. So I got into my backpack, dug out my trusty, nice, big, fancy camera, and tried to take some photos, and I couldn't get it to focus. I was like, well, that's weird. I checked my settings because you can, tell it where to focus based on how you have it set. All that was fine. I even flipped it into manual focus mode, and it still wouldn't focus. The middle was out of focus, and only the very far left edge was still in focus. It wasn't behaving like any camera I've ever seen before.
again, it's all about layers, y'all.
Yeah. I finally quit messing with the camera and just looked down. And I could visibly see that the whole lens was tilted one direction.
Ew.
So I walked back to the car, unmounted the lens, and was trying to look at it to see what had happened to it. I really couldn't tell. I never really could tell because it just wasn't very visible from the outside. But I could clearly push on part of the mount, and it would go in and out.
That's definitely not supposed to happen.
This was very surprising to me. I'm generally very careful with all of my equipment, whether it's guitars or laptops or cameras or microphones or whatever it is. I'm generally a very good owner. I take good care of them. I generally buy quality stuff, and I don't want to say I baby it, but I do take care of my stuff. I bought a padded backpack just to hold this laptop and camera properly. And I guess lenses are just more fragile than I gave them credit for. It had started pouring the previous day when we were headed to Etoile, and all of our bags were in the bed of the truck, and so we had to pull over real quick and get them out and put them, like, stuff them into the cab of the truck. And I think in that jostling, I just hit the lens the wrong way in the backpack, and the whole thing just broke. Once again, from the outside, it really mostly looks fine. You really couldn't tell much about it. It wasn't like there was shattered glass or anything. But, yeah, so I was pretty sure I'd broken my lens, and that was just one more kind of heartbreak for Sunday.
Yeah, it was a bummer.
I've only had this lens since February, so to break it that quickly is really, really too bad. I have sent it off to the manufacturer. I expect they'll be able to fix it. I asked Reddit about the repair, and someone else had a similar repair done. They said theirs cost about $250, which is reasonable. That's definitely doable. I mean, I'm gonna get it fixed no matter what. So I still haven't heard back from them. It just arrived at the manufacturer's office today. So I'm kind of cameraless now.
So that closes out Sunday.
And at that point, Shelby left me at the apartment and drove back to Etoile herself. And I just want to, like, point out, so now 2 days have elapsed in this story. It probably took us 45 minutes to get here, but that's least how much just stuff happened in these couple days.
Monday morning, I get up, I teach class, and Princess and I drive into Nacogdoches to see her vet. We get there, he does an exam, and he is unable to find a fracture in her jaw, which is fantastic news, because if there's not a fracture, then you don't really need to do surgery. She did desperately need a teeth cleaning. Her teeth had gotten in really bad condition. I've just neglected taking care of her teeth.
And they were so stinky. Her breath was so bad.
It was so stinky. Anyway, so that was a thing that I was already scheduling her an appointment for. Now that she had an open wound in her mouth, it was important that that be taken care of then because, infections. And he was already going to have to sedate her to do a further exam to really confirm that there was not any fractures.
So they could kind of combine the exam of the fractures with the teeth cleaning in one procedure.
So I leave her at the vet's office for him to do all that, the teeth cleaning and the exam.
Because it was going to take several hours.
And I go back to Etoile. At this point, we had tentatively planned on my mom picking her up for me. So my mom called to see if she was ready. Mom was like, well, he said that she almost died. And I was just already, what? What do you mean? What do you mean? What do you mean? We didn't get all the details until she and I both went back to the vet's office. We found out that her heart rate had dropped to 20 BPMs while she was sedated.
So you said her heart rate dropped to 20 BPM during surgery. What is it normally?
The normal resting heart rate for a small dog is about 100 to 140.
That's about what I would have guessed. I knew it would be higher than like a human. I think generally the smaller the animal, the higher the heart rate.
As far as I know, that's true. So 20 is quite low. Now,
That would be low for a human too, I think.
certainly. So she was at 20 BPMs for 5 minutes. That's such a long time. They were doing little tiny CPR on her for 5 minutes. They gave her a shot to raise her heart rate up, and it very slowly worked, but it did work. Her heart rate came back up, not to a normal position, but she was like conscious. Surprisingly, the vet said that it was fine to go ahead and take her home, so that's what we did. We took her home with orders to just continue her on the antibiotics and the pain medicine that she'd already been on. I knew that she would be very drowsy, very lethargic for most of the day, and she was. But it should have mostly just lasted like a few hours. By then, most of her anesthesia should have pretty much worn off. But it had not. She was worse than she was whenever we picked her up. I had been keeping the vet updated on her condition through the day, sending him videos of her breathing. And that was the biggest thing that I noticed, was that her heart rate was really fast and her breathing was incredibly shallow and way faster than it should be.
Yeah, it was like all the time.
And that was very concerning to me. So after I had sent him like a new video every hour, maybe not quite that often, but it was pretty often, he finally called me and said, listen.
To tell you that he was blocking your number?
Not quite. But he called and said, listen, it's very likely that she won't make it through the night tonight. It's possible that the pain medicine has just put too much of a strain on her heart after all of the strain that it has already had that day, as well as through the weekend of just being in a traumatic event.
Yeah, also while she was there, they discovered a heart problem. So
yeah,
they also were now aware that she had that, which isn't surprising given her age.
Yeah, she had a very minor heart murmur, which, like Nate said, is not surprising. She's 12 years old. So he told me that, and I'm like desperately trying to keep my composure on the phone while he just keeps telling me that she's probably going to die that night.
I think he was just trying to lower expectations.
Definitely. And I was kind of having trouble gauging, like, okay, does he actually think it's most likely that she will die, or is he just trying to make sure that I know that that is somewhat of a possibility? I was really having a hard time figuring out what the likelihood he thought was that she would die.
But you were not handling it well either way.
I wouldn't say I was handling it poorly. Like,
okay,
I was very emotional, but
I didn't mean like, yeah, you were very upset.
Yes.
Which is understandable.
Yeah. So I held her all night. I held her and I cried. I just started telling her all the things that I was grateful for and all of the joy that she's brought to my life. Almost more so just as a reminder to myself that even through the heartache that comes with losing a pet, that it's still worth it. Like, she still brought so much to my life. So we slept on the couch again. Mom came over. So Mom and I were both like taking turns holding her and petting her and soothing her. And shortly after that, Nate came over and joined us. And so we just all kind of surrounded her with love. And all night while we slept, I just kept my hand on her chest. I just needed to be able to feel that she was still breathing. There wasn't anything I could do about it if she suddenly wasn't breathing, but I just needed to know that she was. Every time that she would move around or like scoot down where she was out of reach, I'd wake up and make sure that I could still feel her. That morning, when I woke up, she was still there. She was still alive. The rest of the day was still rough. She still wasn't doing well, but we'd made it through the night, and I didn't know if that was going to be possible. She did start doing a little bit better on Tuesday, but by Wednesday, she hadn't really improved much. So I decided to take her back to the vet and find out, okay, what do we need to do? Like, when can I expect to start seeing improvement? Because her heart rate had been really high and her breathing had been really shallow since Monday. And I knew it couldn't stay like that. So I needed to know, is this just like how she's going to be for the rest of her life, however long that is? Or is it going to get better? And we got her on some heart medicine. How cute. Just like an old lady. So she's now on a little heart pill once a day to help her heart work better. Oh.
So the start of the week and the incident happened on Saturday. On Sunday, we took her to the vet and got the diagnosis and then had the family event. Monday, she had the surgery and almost died. Tuesday, she still wasn't doing good. Wednesday, she wasn't doing any better, so we had another appointment for her. Then Shelby brought her back again on Friday. So at that point, I think she'd been to the vet 4 different times in 6 days.
Yeah. That is a lot of thermostats up the butt.
That will be the title. Thermostat up the butt.
I want to be clear. Her butt, not mine.
No one was thinking it was your butt.
Well, I just needed to clarify.
Hello, listeners. This is Future Nate. As I'm editing this, I just now heard that we use the word thermostat instead of thermometer. So, my apologies. That was just a hard week. I don't think either of us handled it particularly well. I know I didn't. I do not care about dogs near as much as Shelby, so I wasn't personally worried for Princess. That may sound heartless. Maybe that is heartless. I was very concerned for Shelby, and of course I want Princess to pull through, but
how generous.
I'm not a dog person. I don't know how to explain it. I'm a bad person, and no. I'm the villain of this podcast.
No. No. You're not a bad person. I understand that while you do not have a vested interest in Princess, you do have an interest in me and my well-being. And you are understanding that...
I'm empathetic that this is a big deal for people. Like, them and their pets.
But you also think it shouldn't be.
No. I just don't personally care that much.
Yeah.
So I wasn't emotional about it for the dog's sake, but just
you were
the family's sake.
Yeah, you were very good and supportive and comforting, and you showed her love, and you did a good job. You did well. At her appointment on Friday, the vet told us that he's really impressed at how well she's doing. Only 20% of dogs would survive even just the initial drop in her heart rate while she was sedated. let alone like make it through that night. And at this point, Monday, a little over a week after the incident, and exactly a week after she almost died, she has made a nearly full recovery.
She's still a little slow moving, comparatively.
But even that has picked up about to where it was.
Definitely.
I mean, she's never been fast. Her legs are 2 inches long, so she's just so little.
Yeah, she's little.
Also, the dog that bit her, not a big dog. This is a Scotty dog. Like, these are not big dogs.
I would say it's a medium-sized dog.
No, those are still considered small dogs.
Well, I don't care what they're considered. That is a medium-sized dog.
The point is, basically, any dog is bigger than Princess.
Yeah. What was interesting to me was that Princess never was afraid of the dog that bit her. Like, she never cowered. She never, like, kept her distance, especially. Like, neither of the dogs seemed to, I don't know, hold it against the other dog.
Yeah, that's also part of the, like, bummer thing, is that Princess still had to stay in the house with her attacker. Like, that is so not ideal. But the reality is, out there, I could be with her 24/7 and she could have somebody watching and taking care of her.
Yeah, there wasn't any other option. I mean, you were stuck out there because you couldn't just leave your responsibilities.
Yeah.
And your mom and I weren't able to take care of her like you would.
Yeah, I mean, other people, like, have to go to work, and she really couldn't be left alone. I didn't leave her alone at all. I brought her in the bathroom with me. I set her down in front of the shower when I showered. Like, she was always with me because I needed to see that she was fine. And whenever she's away from us, like, that gives her anxiety. Like, she's got separation anxiety. And I was also concerned about the effect that rise in anxiety would have on her heart. Her sweet little baby heart.
So, hopefully you can understand how we weren't quite able to make time for our podcast last week. And apologies, because today's will be late too.
Things have been crazy.
I guess to end on a somewhat happier and more shallow ending, Friday night, our photography club hosted their yearly gallery show opening. So 5 of my 6 photos that I submitted were accepted into the gallery. I found out that I had one that received an honorable mention.
And there were a lot more submissions than I expected. Like, I knew the number of how many there were, but there were a lot of pictures.
Yeah. So I was very happy about that. I wasn't really expecting to win anything. But I'm more just kind of, I don't know. I'm glad to have that done too.
Yeah. But it was really good. For anyone in Nacogdoches, the photography exhibit will be open for another month at the Cole Art Center upstairs. Highly recommend it.
Yeah. Admission is free. So if you do want to stop by the Cole Art Center downtown and go upstairs, you can see some of my photos. And also all the other better photos that won.
The regular exhibits that they have in the museum are also always really good. So
yeah,
the
it's a good
exhibits
museum.
downstairs are definitely worth seeing, even if you don't care about Nate's pictures.
Yeah, and there's only 60 pictures, so you could kind of browse through them all pretty quickly.
Was it only 60?
Yeah, that's how many were printed.
Huh.
This will probably be our longest episode.
And our saddest.
Longest and saddest.
I haven't cried in an episode yet. Today's the first. which is kind of surprising because I cry a lot.
I have decided to call this the Great Lake House Disaster.
Great Lake House Disaster of 2019.
You know, it's kind of like when a family has like that was the mayonnaise incident of 2008. We don't talk about that around Dad. Like, it's like that. It's like that was the Lake House Disaster of 2019, and
we don't talk about it around Princess.
And we don't talk about it around Princess or our vet, who is tired of getting texts and videos from Shelby about
I
her
have
dog.
not texted him since
that one day when you texted him hourly.
I have not texted him since Wednesday.
That's very good.
Yeah, that is very good.
You should text him and say, "Aren't you proud of me? I've left you alone. I've stopped harassing you."
I mean, he gave me his cell phone number for a reason.
Yeah.
And also then he told me my dog was going to die, so...
So it's really his fault.
I mean, kinda.
We better wrap this up.
Yeah, I'm exhausted again. The whole week was exhausting emotionally, and now it's like hit me again. Ugh.
Yeah. I will post a cute little picture of Princess in the show notes, and I'll make it the show art for this episode.
With her little muzzle.
Yeah, maybe.
And a cuter one, where she's just cute.
Yeah. Well, there'll be a selection of
what am
Princess
I saying?
Photos.
She's always cute.
Yeah, she was cuter in the muzzle, I think, than anything.
No.
Yeah, because that was cute.
Absolutely. The muzzle itself is cute, but her in the muzzle was just sad.
It was
cute,
sad.
Because she was cute and sad.
Yeah. Anyways, there will be a selection of photos in the show notes, which you can find at heydeans.com/highlights.
I think we need to have a page on our website just for her. Like
No.
heydeans.com/princess. I'm thinking yes. Guys, email us and tell us what you think. Do you want a section on the website just for Princess?
Email us and tell us that. There's a contact form on the website at heydeans.com/contact. So if you want to see a Princess cover spread on the website, then you can let us know. Or you can comment on something on Instagram or message our Facebook page. We're all over the place, so find us somewhere and tell us what you think. And if you think that she should have a spread, then don't tell us what you think.
Hey.
I saw an app the other day that said, "Do you really love the app? Great, rate us in the App Store." And I said, "Are you having problems with the app? Why don't you email us?"
Yeah.
It's only rate unless you're going to give us 5 stars, okay? Don't actually give your honest opinion. Only give your positive opinion in your rating, and then, talk to us and let us make it right before you give us a bad review.
Yeah. If me crying live on the podcast made you uncomfortable, please let us know. Don't just give us a bad review. I can talk about less sad things.
We do have 2 reviews on iTunes.
Do we really?
Yeah. Well, not reviews. Sorry, ratings. Review is when you actually have text. A rating is just a star rating. Now, one of them was me.
Nate,
but, okay.
Come on. Okay.
I think it's a 5-star podcast, personally. And if you don't think it's a 5-star podcast, you shouldn't rate it. At least a minimum of 4 stars. I'll take a 4-star review.
Oh, gosh, why would you admit that?
But if you think it's a 3
loud?
stars, why don't you just forget where to rate things at?
Okay, well, here's the thing. I guess you can rate it. But you
only
can't...
4 or 5 stars. Otherwise, just keep it to yourself.
Let me finish. You, Nate Dean, I guess, can rate our podcast.
I can do whatever I want.
You cannot say, we have 2 ratings. No.
I can. We have 2 ratings from 2 unbiased sources. The other rating is not from you.
You are not unbiased. You are arguably the most biased.
I'm a weekly listener. I listen more than once. one of the ratings is not from me. So one other person, almost certainly like your mom, rated us.
Mom doesn't know how to rate podcasts.
Okay, maybe.
No, I shouldn't say that. I'm sure that she can. Mom, I am confident that you could figure out how to leave a rating if you wanted to.
And go leave us 5 stars. Go prove it and figure it out.
I'll help you, Mommy.
Okay. I think this episode should have ended 5 minutes ago.
I think this episode should have ended 30 minutes ago.
Thank you for listening, and we will be next. Oh, gosh.
Keep it in.
Thank you, listeners. Next week, bye.
No,
Next
really.
time, see ya.
Bye.